Hi everyone, this is Bhupendra again, and we're on to video 3 of the presentation for the Lonsdale QMS software-based queue management system. Today we're going to be having a look at the QMS setup and the impact it will have on your front-end services. So let's fire up the application, log into it. Okay, right. So this is our interface. What we have here is six main tabs. So we have our ticket editor, we have our queue system manager, we have our wall-mounted ticket printer manager, we have our staff profiling manager, we also have the list for the footfall inquiries and admin categories, and a new feature we've added is T2 and T3 categories for resolved and unresolved inquiries. Now if we go to the tools menu here and we look at the database, you can see that we've got the IP address of where the machine that holds the database, the username of that database, and password, and the actual name of the database, which I've just highlighted here. Now what we also have is database maintenance. Now this will be available for wall-mounted ticket printers only. Our previous video number 2, we looked at the database maintenance software, which is for server-based QMS setup. Now if we take a look at our global variables, what we can see here is that the total number of sweat boxes, which is our media player boxes, at the moment we only have one attached to this system. Now when we use the first option, which says use ticket printer date of birth, this is to obtain customer information. Although it says date of birth here, what we could do is we could tailor it to obtain all different types of reference numbers, account numbers, depending on the client application. By checking this use closing categories box, what that basically means is when an inquiry has been dealt with, the system will prompt the user to actually define a reason for the outcome of that inquiry. The reset queue after printing option would be strictly for the wall-mounted ticket printer, so we won't be looking at this in this tutorial. Now where it says use closing categories number 2 and number 3, this is a new feature that we've added based on inquiries that can be resolved or unresolved, and the reasons why inquiries are unresolved, providing further management information. So if we go to our printer type, what we've selected here is the USB desktop. This would be strictly for a receptionist-based printer or a touchscreen kiosk printer. The embedded option is for the wall-mounted ticket printer, but we'll have a look at that in another tutorial. So let's hit OK. Now if we go to our SQL script, this will basically help us to identify any script errors that may occur when we're making changes to the system. Now because this is being fault tested, this particular feature is pretty much redundant because the system is working perfectly well. Now if we take a look at the system's bookings, this is basically our interface to a appointment system. So the server IP address is where the database of the appointment system is held, the name of the database, and obviously the username and password. And that could be integrated into the queuing system, so whether you have your own or use the Lonsdale database is not a problem. Now running through the features of the QMS setup, what we have first of all is the ticket editor application. So if we take a look at the first option, which is our header, we can have a welcome message. The message could be as long as you want, and you can increase the size of the font over here on the right hand side. Or alternative, if you want something a little bit more presentable, we can actually select the logo. So let's go and find the logo, and I'm just going to choose our web logo here. And what this basically does, it just prints it off as a thermal graphic, so the ticket presentation looks a little bit nicer. Now in terms of the information that's actually presented on the ticket, what we could do is we can label the name of the queue and the subservice that the customer has chosen. You then got the ticket number that goes underneath that, and then the time and date as well. Now we also have the option to add additional information, so we can check this box here, and this information will be printed with the ticket at the bottom. Now please be aware, the longer the message, the longer the ticket issue will be. If you just simply switch that message off, it will only print the header, the queue name, the ticket number, and the time and date. Once we're happy with these settings, we'll just simply hit the save settings button on the bottom right hand corner, and then we'll see the changes when we issue a ticket later on in another video. Now on the second tab, what we have is our actual queue management system manager. So let us look at the first tab, first column that says ticket ranges. What that basically is the ticket ranges for the wall-mounted ticket printer. We will not go through that on this tutorial. We'll have a look at that on the second tutorial. At the bottom of that, you've got your queues. Now, this is the list of all the queues that are available on the queue management system. So, the queue number is the unique identifier for each of these queues. The queue name is the name of the queue. The start and stop is the actual range for the tickets being issued for this queue. The next represents the next ticket number that's going to be issued on the queue. And the reset column, when it's checked, basically means reset the ticket number to the starting range every morning. The categorize option basically means that for each queue there is going to be a sub-service available. So when you're issuing a ticket for Q1, for example, housing management, we can then ask what type of housing management inquiry is it. And then the same would apply for council tax and children's learning. When we do a benefits, we'll just issue a generic benefits ticket, and then the inquiry reason can be resolved or identified at the end of the customer transaction. And on the final column, what we have is we have the kiosk. The reason why these boxes are checked is I want this option available on the kiosk. All housing resources tickets and appointment tickets can only be made available by a receptionist-based ticket issue process. But if we check that, again, we can have all of these available on the kiosk as well. Once I've made my changes to this particular table, I can just simply hit Save Queues, and it will save my queues. Now, in order to add queues, what you can do is you can simply add a queue at the bottom here by entering a queue name, a queue number, a queue name, a start range, a stop, next, reset, and whether you want it categorized or if you want it on a kiosk. Now, how easy is it to manage this table? Well, it's very simple. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to delete a queue and also how to add or edit a queue. So if we select emergency here, in order for me to delete this particular queue, all I do is on my keyboard is hit the delete button. It will ask me, do you want to delete this queue? And I'm going to hit yes. Now that saved my settings, so we can now see that queue number 8, which was emergency, has now been removed from the queue management system. However, if you do want to utilize that as another queue, for example, what we can do is we can go back in, hit queue number 8 as our unique identifier, and for the queue name we will call this inquiry. Now our start range is going to be from 700, we're going to take that over to 799, and our next ticket issue that's going to be printed is number 700. Do I want to reset this every day? Yes. Do I want to categorize it? Yes. And do I want to put it on the kiosk? Yes. Now I've saved this, what I now go and do is I can go in and say I want to change this label and make it new customer inquiry. Right, so let's save that. Okay. And what we can also do is we can also go away and change the range. So we may want to change it so that the range finishes at 849, and once we do that, we would have to go back here in the appointments queue and change this range to 850. Once we're happy with that, we hit the save settings button again, and you can now see that we've got queue number 8, new customer inquiry. We've increased the range to issue 150 tickets, and we've also changed the range on the appointments. So to add, edit, and remove is very simple. Now when we go down to the inquiries here on the bottom left hand table, which I'm just going to scroll through now, what this basically represents is the queue number, number 1, which is associated with housing management. And over here we've got the subcategories listed for each of those queues. Now in the same way, what I can do is I can go in and add another category. So what we'll do is we'll call this category new product, for example. And we will attach this to our queue number 8, which is for inquiries, and we will save our table. If we now have a look, we can now see the new product has now been saved. Now in terms of the total number of queues and the total number of categories, there is no limitation. If you want to go in and delete the services, it is up to your discretion what you want to manage. If you want to add more categories, again, you can go in and add more categories. Providing that you have a queue number associated with that category, that will be listed alongside the main queue when you go and issue a ticket. Now if we look at our closing variables on the right hand table, this again works in the same principle as our categories table over here, but the only difference being is that although you may go in for a new product, you may want to identify the reason of that new product. So if we take a look here and we just organize this in numerical order, we can see that we don't have number 8 here. So what we can say is a new product was a purchase made. And what we would do is we would associate this with queue number 8. So when the inquiry is being closed off by the customer service agent, it would ask the customer service agent, in relation to this particular queue, number 8, where you had a new customer inquiry and they actually came in for a new product, what was the outcome of that conversation? Was a purchase made? Did the customer make an application? Is more documentation required? Do they need to be moved over to finance to finalize the transaction, so to speak? So in the same way, we can add, edit, and remove as we did for the queues and the categories. Now the third tab is basically a maintenance option for this particular QMS setup tool. We want to restart the system every day, and we automatically want to reset the ticket numbers overnight. These are the only two features available on the USB desktop printer and the ticket kiosk. When we go into the Walmart printer, I will go through these settings here with you, just to show you how the system actually sort of works. Now when we look at our staff table, what we can do is we can use a number of different options. So number one, we can actually enter the name of the staff number, and an index code, just to find out from our reporting tools what the staff member has actually been doing. If we go on to use the Windows login, which most customers do, that basically means that when you log on to your Windows or network-based solution, it will take the user ID and create a user profile on the reporting software. So it just saves you a lot of time and effort having to go through a staff number and tie it up with a member of staff, because a Windows login again is unique to each individual member of staff. So you may have two John Smiths, one might be John Smith and one might be John Smith, for example. Yeah. And when we look at the reporting, I will show you exactly sort of how the Windows Active Directory impacts upon the reporting and also the live management of the queue management system itself. Now when we move over to the fifth tab, we have a footfall inquiry. A footfall inquiry has been developed purely for the reason that there may be customers that come in and a ticket may not be issued because the inquiry has been resolved at the reception desk. So rather than saying, okay, a customer came in and we dealt with the inquiry, but we weren't able to record that and we weren't able to record the reason, this basically gives us the option to record that. Now in the same way, what we did was in our queue tables here, we added, edited, and removed our variable fields. So what we can do here in the same fashion is we've got foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, and foot 5. So we can add in foot 4 and save that. So what that basically means is that when you go to the foot 4 tab on the ticket printer at reception, you'll be able to actually record that reason. Admin categories is strictly for the actual keypad itself. What admin categories are available? Well, that's completely up to you. At the moment we have admin 1 to 6, but this could be number 1 could be photocopying, number 2 could be seeking advice, number 3 could be taking a break, recreational break, for example. So when you look at the data, although the serving time may be 20 minutes, out of that 20 minutes, maybe 5 to 6 minutes may have been an admin task. So it gives you a better profile of the staffing trends at frontline services. And in the same fashion as footfall, what we can do is we can add, edit, and remove. So let's remove admin number 6 by simply highlighting and pressing delete on the keyboard, and that simply is it. And I hit save, and that basically means that I've only got 5 admin categories left. Now we'll have a look at that in more detail when we go over onto the live managers panel and the keypads and see how they actually work. And finally we have T2 and T3 category tables. T2 is a resolved category and T3 is an avoidable contact. So this basically means that number 1, that the customer inquiry has been resolved. Number 3 is an avoidable contact. I don't want to deal with this customer, maybe because they're aggressive, maybe because we can't resolve this inquiry and we'll have to come back at a later date. And this will provide further closing options on the ticket for members of staff and management.